Coming up on the Empowered Woman podcast.
The thing that I love about what I do is being able to pull out of people that you're capable of anything. So let's really own what you really want here and give yourself permission that if you created magic in one area, you can recreate it in another, because it wasn't about the area that you created it in. It was about the fact that you created it in the first place. And I love seeing that. I love watching women experience, like try to believe it, but then experience it so that they can actually believe it for themselves.
Welcome to the Empowered Woman podcast, the #1 show on personal growth, visibility, and profit for women entrepreneurs. If you're wanting to get empowered to be seen, stand out on social media, stages, TV, and more to make an impact with your voice in business, you're in the right place. I am so glad that you're here. My name is Marta Spurk, and I'm your host, empowerment coach, visibility and marketing expert, and all things motivation extraordinaire. Welcome again, and let's dive into today's episode. Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited. You know what's so interesting is that I have been following you for quite a long time. And just recently I went back in my email to do a search because I remembered when I first started my business in around 2016 is when I found you, and through ads, I believe, and I was doing network marketing at the time. And then I signed up for one of your webinars. So I have emails from you dating back to 2017, which is wild. And that's one of the things that I wanted to kind of touch on is the evolution of business since you've been around for quite a while. But beforehand, I would love for you to tell us who you are and what you do, and then we'll go from there.
Oh my God, I love that. That's amazing. So my name is Lara Dann. I am a business coach. I have been an entrepreneur for 11 years now. And of course, my business has evolved quite a bit. But in a nutshell, I like to say that I help women show up and blow up online. I teach simple strategies. I believe that marketing should be kept simple. And I also believe in unapologetically selling and being yourself to do so. And so, through my programs and my podcast called You're Fucking Welcome, that's what I help women do.
Oh my gosh, I love it so much. And I love the conversations that you bring up. And the reason we even connected, which I was not expecting, is because I shared one of your posts in my stories. And then I didn't even tag you. And I realized, that's what you're supposed to do. So people get the credit and know, but you were able to see it and you liked the message, or I think you said something. And then I entertained the conversation a little and I was like, would you be on my podcast? And you said yes, to my surprise, which I'm very grateful for.
Oh yeah.
But I love that you're so real. I think that's one of the things that I wanted to start with is very unapologetic about sales, which is something that so many people struggle with, and about the simplicity that it really is what it takes to make things happen. So I'd love to hear in a nutshell, obviously there's lots to that, but your journey, like into getting into this, like how did it all start? Because for somebody that's just starting out, hearing someone say, I've been doing this for 11 years, I don't even know what goes in their head because I've been doing it for half of that, but it's still like I know the overwhelm, when you first get started. So just jump in whatever you think is relevant, talking about the journey itself.
Yeah, it is overwhelming even to think back. I started my business back in 2012, and at that time, like it was not this fully thought out thing. Like I was not in the world of 10K months and, online courses. I had no clue of what any of that was. I just knew that after being in marketing for a few years, I knew that I was good at it and I knew that people needed help with it. And I also knew that I wanted to not necessarily be my own boss, but I wanted more freedom. And I saw an opportunity to do that, again, knowing so many people needed help with their marketing. And so at the time, I feel like I acted like I invented, freelancing. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to, work for a bunch of different companies and blah, blah, blah. And I was scrappy and I hustled and I did everything from looking on Craigslist to finding people who needed, marketing support to like asking for referrals. And so I did that for a few years where I just worked with any company that would hire me. I literally had companies that were plumbing companies, like spin studios. And it was a situation where I'm like, oh, you'd benefit from, Pinterest marketing. Let me take a course on Pinterest marketing and let me learn it. And so I just did a lot of things and I got my feet really, really, really wet, for, crap money, no boundaries, any of those kind of things. Like I was basically just like, I had like 50 bosses, but after a few years that evolved into, okay, rather than doing it for people, it'd probably make more sense to show people how to do it. And so back in 2015, I really transitioned to coaching. And for a few years there, I did a lot of one-on-one coaching, which was fine. But I think that at the time I'm definitely an introverted person. And as I know, a lot of people struggle with, one-on-one coaching took up a lot of my energy and it felt very overwhelming to me. And so finally in 2017, I kind of figured out how to transition to more of a group model. So, most of my income, most of how we've made our, millions of dollars, most of it has come in from group programs, self-study courses ranging in prices from, $7 to $2,000. And it's really the basis of still my marketing and my business today.
Oh my gosh, what a journey. Well, and as we know, being entrepreneurs shines quite a bit of light in our own insecurities, our limitations and all of that. So one thing that I wanted us to get into is, what are the things that through the years you learned about yourself that, in terms of personal growth and the mindset, the things that, you had to work through this process? And it could be like money mindset or anything that you would like to share, because I know everybody struggles with it. And when we hear it from people as accomplished as you, it's encouraging.
Oh my God, there have been so many things. And you're absolutely right. I feel like entrepreneurship is, the thing to pull out all of those insecurities. And then you have no choice but to actually work through them. I think, the biggest thing, which I almost don't even want to say, but it's the truth, is that my weight has been a struggle for me from the time that I was 7. I've been every weight on the scale. I've been every size. And so there was definitely this part of me that always knew I was smart, always knew I was capable, but visibility and opening myself up to criticism felt really, really, really scary for me for a long time. And what I want to say is that, like, I don't know, I think it's important to say this, that so many people want to like overcome their struggles with, like, let's say confidence. And obviously good, right? We all want to work through those things. But I'm really, one of the things that I'm most proud of about myself in terms of how I've run this business is that I feel like I hacked my confidence. I was like, you know what? I don't feel comfortable being super visible and opening myself up to, public critique and so on and so forth. And so I built a business that was largely centered in a private Facebook group because that's what I was comfortable with at the time. And so, like, yes, I've worked on those things and I'm no longer in fear of those things. But I think so often we're trying to get rid of a fear immediately and we don't think we have a workaround in the meantime. And so that's something that I've had to spend a lot of time working on, but I was still able to build a successful business in the process, which again, I'm proud of. And I think that people need to hear.
Oh, that's such a great point. You got to make it work for you. And it's such a fine balance, though, fine line, I guess I should say, because there are people out there saying, just screw it all and face your fears. But if you're not ready for that, that can literally ruin you and make you want to give up. And I think many people do give up because of those visibility fears and, the rejection or the criticism, negative feedback or whatever. So that's amazing. So on that same line of thought, in terms of listening to people's feedback or, guidance from coaches or even into your own intuition, how have you navigated that? Like, because lots of people, that's something I've noticed about myself. I think I depended a lot on my own intuition post-business more than when I first started the business. And then I developed this codependency with coaches where tell me what I need to do to reach these goals, And then it reached a point where I literally had to unsubscribe, fire, distance myself. Because it's like, if I can't do this by myself, like listening to my own voice, I can't continue. So I'd love to hear your take on that journey.
Oh my God, I have so much to say on this. I think at the end of the day, the lesson that I've had to learn is that leaders lead. Mm. And so that meant that like, if I was, having my first 8K month and so on and so forth, to go to the 20K month, I thought that I had to listen to a new piece of advice. I thought I had to turn into somebody new and go to the next level. And like, I continually put somebody new above me instead of realizing that like, okay, I did something well. I followed my gut. I followed my intuition, and that's why it worked. And so to get to the next level of that, I just need to do more of that and not assume that the next level is beyond me and then somebody else holds the key to that or all the magic to that. And so I think it's such a smart thing to like, I always say this to my people. I'm like, I don't want to sound like a cult leader, but I also feel like you shouldn't be listening to a million people. Like if my philosophy is resonating with you, but then you're also listening to 10 other people whose philosophies are completely different, I'd rather you unfollow me and then follow like one of them versus trying to follow 15 different people going down 15 different paths, because that's just going to keep you in indecision and overwhelm. And so like for me I know for myself that I thrive financially from my happiness perspective when things are simple. And so continuing to allow myself to feel into what feels simple versus believing that there's a shiny object out there, whether that's a strategy or whether it's a coach preaching about their strategy. Like I've got my back at this point. And of course, that's something that comes with experience. But I think so many times, so many of us, we have so much more inherent knowledge within us, but we don't know to listen to it. And so as we go day after day, right, as in business, turning up the dial on listening to it a little bit more clearly.
That's so true. And trusting the journey too, and understanding, like, just like what you're saying, you just got to continue doing this, but we're thinking it has to be something new. It has to be something different so that it's faster. And that's generally not the case. Which brings me to a point that I always like to emphasize in everything that I do, and that sometimes people may think is not very related to business, but I think it is a huge part of it, which is forgiveness. Forgiveness of yourself and forgiveness of other people, even mentors that, I know I've held resentment towards, thinking that they may be responsible for my results or that they tricked me into thinking I should have done something, but, learning that personal responsibility, but also the choice that I have to distance myself from things that don't serve me. So I'd love to hear how your journey with forgiveness has been in this process.
I don't mean to sound like a martyr as I say this, but I think for a long time, which again is something I'm even working on now, is that I didn't blame anybody else because I was so busy blaming myself for, I hold myself so responsible for like, if something, even in like, if somebody like screwed me over, quote unquote, it has always felt easier to blame myself than like being confrontational about it, so on and so forth. And so I've made so much progress with that. But my point is that I've had to really work so much on giving myself compassion and letting myself off the hook. I just made a big transition in my business, and I had done something that I'm kind of like undoing now. And I was, looking at it, like, I'm like, okay, I can't believe I made this mistake. And I'm like, no, like, I'm not willing to be somebody who's afraid to make mistakes. I did something that I thought felt good. I turned around and I don't think I wanted to do that, but I'm proud of myself for being the person that took a risk and just not entertaining the idea that like beating myself up is the right thing or B, the thing that's going to work anyway.
Right.
It's not going to help.
That's so true. And that self-forgiveness and that compassion, it's also very huge part of the journey and the lessons in all of this. So let's talk about some super positive things now, flipping the script a little. What are some of the big like milestones, some of the biggest achievements or things that you're super proud of in this journey that you can think of?
As we were talking about keeping things simple and following our intuition, one of my favorite stories to share is back in 2020, I had, a strategy that was working well for me, and COVID hit. And I had this moment of like, okay, panic. Like I've got to do this too. And I've got to do that. And I've got to do this, for the 2 weeks that we were waiting for it to roll over. Right. I was in panic mode a little bit there. And then I caught myself setting ourselves up to do so many new strategies and things and so on and so forth. And then I just finally had this moment. I was like, F this. Like I would rather make less money and keep myself sane. And so I committed to just showing up in my Facebook group. Literally in 2020, I don't think I posted on Instagram more than a handful of times. And we had our first $1 million year.
Wow.
And it was the simplest year that we'd ever had. And I just feel so proud of that I was like, I did what I wanted to do and I did it consistently. And that's what worked versus, again, the belief that like that $1 million level was outside of me. Like I did things my way and it worked. And I'm proud of that.
Gosh, yeah, that's going to feel amazing. That's wonderful. And now on the note of back to what you were saying about choosing to keep things more private because that's how you operate and it worked out for you. Through the years, you have become more well-known and you more of a public person. How have you encouraged or empowered yourself through that, knowing that you are more introverted and then opening yourself up to more people seeing you?
I think I have more faith and trust in myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I know myself well enough that like, I know that I'm not an asshole and I'm not out there attempting to polarize or attempting to be harmful. I feel like a lot of people nowadays, especially will, put out more polarizing messages for the purpose of getting seen instead of because it's actually what they feel. Mm-hmm. My rule for myself is that I don't say anything or do anything unless I can own it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm more confident now that I could sit there and say something. 5 years ago, if somebody disagreed with that opinion, I'd be like, oh my God, should I take that down? Was I wrong? So on and so forth. But now I'm like, I'm fully okay with it. You might not agree with me, but my truth is my truth. My experience is my experience. And I'm only speaking from my lens of things. And of course, that doesn't mean that if I were to say something harmful, I would very much care about that. Right. Like I want to make sure that I get it right and that I'm doing good, but I trust myself to do that. And so therefore, internet trolls, whoever else, like that I thought previously could quote unquote take me down, it's just not a fear anymore. Like I've got my own back. And again, it's not as though that happened overnight. It's just been a continual process all this time.
Right. So it sounds like a lot of your transformation through the years with the business had a lot to do with you trusting yourself and believing in yourself and not caring what else is going on. And so I'd love for you to share some of the biggest transformations from clients, like some stories, if you'd like to share anything that pops into mind of things that you're super proud of that you were able to facilitate.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that pops into my head is my client, Christy, because I've been working with her for years now, but she's somebody who I look at and I just think she can do anything. Like, I think she's so capable and so smart and so passionate. And, her establishing a successful business and doing, having one particular niche and getting to a point where, she really wanted to move on, but was like so afraid to do that. Mm. And it took, it was a process to kind of like give herself permission to pivot. But once she did, she started hitting like her first 6-figure month and like has gone on to just to do really incredible things like in her own personal life and goals that she's had for a really long time. But the thing that I love about what I do is being able to pull out of people that you're capable of anything. So let's really own what you really want here and give yourself permission that if you created magic in one area, you can recreate it in another. Because it wasn't about the area that you created it in. It was about the fact that you created it in the first place. And I love seeing that. I love watching women experience, like try to believe it, but then experience it so that they can actually believe it for themselves.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. Well, which leads me perfectly into my next question. And I think you're kind of already answered, but I would love an official answer, what is an empowered woman?
Oh, an empowered woman is a woman who knows that she is the prize and is not willing to abandon herself in the name of outcomes. So whether that means you want to, meet the partner, and so all of a sudden you're trying to fit into their mold of what you think they want, or that means that you want the sale and you're trying to say what you think that they want you to hear. An empowered woman says what she believes, she honors what she really wants, and she goes after it kindly, but while also being unapologetic about that desire in the first place. And again, not feeling like they have to hide that or water it down.
Mm-hmm. Own it.
Own it. Yeah.
Well, you said you've moved in the last few years more into like the group programs and evergreen things, self-based things. Tell us more about how people can work with you right now.
Sure. So right now I'm launching something that I'm actually really excited about called Momentum. And that is, most of my programs right now are self-study, but I wanted to create one specific coaching container that is an accessible price point. So it's $497 a month. We've got weekly group coaching calls and an opportunity to ask questions and submit Q&As and all that kind of stuff. So I've got a lot of amazing programs on my website that are launching this year. But Momentum, it's, present. That's what we're launching right now, and I'm excited about. But it's an opportunity to just go deeper into so much of this and get that custom support if that's what somebody feels like they need, which side note, I think we all do.
Yes, definitely. And then what are some of the other things? I'm sure you have tons of them, but
my signature programs, I have Show Up and Blow Up, the 500K sales system, Simplify and Scale, which are basically like a beginner, intermediate, and more advanced. Just look into systems and structures and simplifying marketing so that it's effective and then it works, but it's also, again, not overwhelming and crazy. And then I also have a new program coming out, or re-release of a program called You're Fucking Welcome, which is my entire sales philosophy. Because I think women are entitled to sell, and people are lucky that we are selling purposeful, amazing things. And I want more women to own that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. Love that philosophy. Amazing. Well, tell us how to find you. I know you recently revived your Facebook group, but what are some of the best places?
That is going to be, it was, and it is, and it's in the process of being, again, my favorite place. We just recently rebranded the Facebook group. The name of it is You're Fucking Welcome, the community. I haven't renamed it yet as I'm speaking this out loud, but I'm sure it will be updated as this airs. Mm-hmm. But I really thrive off of a sense of community. And so genuinely connecting in there is my favorite place to have people. And then I also have a You're Fucking Welcome podcast, which has new episodes every Wednesday.
Amazing. And Instagram too. Right?
Instagram too. Yes. I hate Instagram. I love you connecting with me, but I always forget it. Instagram overwhelms me. That's okay. But
I got to say, even if you don't like it, you're doing a great job, because that's how we connected. So I'm thankful for that.
Thank you. I always forget it. Yeah, but thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This was such an amazing conversation.
Yes. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope this episode empowered you. And if you enjoyed the show, please join the Empowered Woman community on Facebook and share with friends, or leave a review on iTunes so more people can discover this empowering message. Until next time, bye.